Okay, so I'm going to hit you guys with a warning. It's something I don't do very often on this channel, and it's because, frankly, there haven't been that many films that I've discussed that warrant that. And it's not the kind of warning you think. I'm not talking about sensitive material or potentially traumatizing stuff. What I'm talking about is something a little bit different. And I'm going to say this. If you're not ready for this movie, you're not ready for this movie. Simple as that. And if you've clicked on this video, you know what this is going to be about. But I feel like I have to say that because I was not ready for this movie when I first saw this movie. And that movie is, of course, Secretary. Let's talk about it. So this was another one of those recommendations that about, a little bit over a year ago, I first was introduced to this film. And it was an experience. In preparation for this video, I decided to know, hey, I'm gonna watch it again and see what's up. And I'm surprised. So a few things came up for me this time that I didn't recognize in my first viewing. And before I get into that, I want to say that I was actually surprised to learn this time around how many people's favorite movie this is. I had no idea that it was, if not the favorite, it was in a top 5 list. It was it was a favorite, and that was surprising to me. And having seen it again, I think I can, I understand that more. And I will get into what the heck is going on with this movie. So, I have to say that I found this viewing to be much more immersive for me. I don't know what it was about it that really, I was swept up in it. But also I was able to recognize different things about it that just wasn't there before. Like, for instance, I don't remember it being as unintentionally funny. It was funny for me this time. Well, it was funny last time, but it was funnier for some reason. And I'll get into why. I think, chief among those reasons is something I'm calling the faces of Spader. So, and as a preface, let me unpack that for a second. So I have one of my dear buddies, one of my best friends. He if he's watching, he'll know what this is about. So there's a thing in movies where you see facial expressions and things. For instance, sometimes nothing has to be communicated, but something's communicated because you see the person's facial expression, and that's enough. That's funny. And so there are several movies that he and I, my boy and I, will recognize. So if you look at something like Wild Things, for instance, Kevin Bacon's character there's a scene where he's being a peeping Tom with his camera. There's one point where he looks up from the camera and it's hilarious. Like, he says nothing, but his facial expression is hilarious. So that's one example. The Transporter is another one. So there's a big action sequence, probably in the middle of the film, whatever it is. Jason Statham goes in and jacks up a whole bunch of dudes in this room. And there's this sequence. It's real quick. If you blink, you'll blink. If you blink, you'll miss it. He's fighting everybody, whatever it is, and there's a firearm on the floor. He looks, and the way he looks, it's a cutaway real quick, but his facial expression, not only is it's cool, it's actually extremely cool, but the way he looks for some reason and how the cut is executed, it's just funny. Now, my boy and I laugh at stuff like this. So James Spader has several moments, probably in the first, I want to say 20 minutes of this film, where he's got this. He has this expression on his face. He has a multitude of expressions, and a lot of things are being communicated in it, which is actually it's really cool because, but it's also funny. Um, Look at this. Look at this. I'm sorry. Look, can you see? That doesn't do it justice because there are several shots where you catch him looking at Lee, doing something or whatever it is, and he there's this look on his face. It's like he's trying to contain something. That's clear. There's something going on internally that we are. It's hinted at. We don't know for sure what his deal is, but we know he's going through something. And likely, he by the way, Spader plays a guy named Edward Gray, who is an attorney at this law office, and Lee has come to work for him as secretary. And like Lee, at the start of the film, Edward Gray he's kind of lost. There's something about him. He's floundering about, and he's dealing with something that we don't know about, but we're aware that there's something beneath the surface. What's going on with him and his facial expressions, in the moments when he doesn't say anything, when he's stealing glances at Lee or however you see him around the corner or whatever, it's like there's a hunger, like a desire within him, and he's trying to contain it. Around this new secretary who's working for him, and it's great nuanced acting by Spader. Everybody knows Spader's a G, right? James Spader is amazing. If you've seen him on The Blacklist, he's great in that show. He's got a voice that is commanding, and frankly, look, if I was in that office, if he gave a directive, I'm pretty sure I would do whatever he asked. So, yeah, his voice is quite. It gives you chills a little bit. So yeah, that's what's going on with Edward Gray. I mentioned desire that he's trying to contain, and there's something about that plays into like he wears red a lot. That's the other thing I think is cool about this movie is the color motif and what the colors represent, or at least what they represent to me as I've viewed them. Which I didn't see this last time for some reason. I didn't pick up on this, but this time, Edward Gray wears a lot of red. He's got red ties. There's red in his office. He's got the red pens. There's something about that evokes this mood of like heat. Like there's something of heat. There's a fire. There's something smoldering beneath the surface of him. Some simmering. There's passion, and that color does so much work. And all James Spader has to do is come in and sort of fill in the blanks, and he does so brilliantly. It's great as this sort of off-kilter. There's an awkwardness about him, but it's not. It's not sort of the typical nerdy awkwardness. There is something he's trying to get a handle on. And it's clear he's smitten with Lee. He likes Lee, and there's some stuff going on with that. And I think that it's cool the way red represents his character and those aspects of his character. I appreciated that this time a lot more. I didn't catch it last time. Speaking of color, purple is another color that's going on. So I looked at this movie as a sort of a fairy tale for adults. And when Lee first arrives at the office for her interview, she's wearing purple. What does that mean? Why is that important? Purple, there's something about it that's like it means a lot of things. In the context of this film, though, there's a regalness. We know royalty is associated with purple. It can be, it has been in other situations and stuff. And I think when you see the film, you understand how that plays into this story, royalty. Where do you see the story plays out almost like a grown-up Disney princess story. The girl is on a journey to find, love or whatever it is. And I would say that I would amend that for this story is that's it's not necessarily what Lee's after. That's a sort of a byproduct. She's searching for herself too. She's lost at the beginning of this movie too, and Purple and royalty and Jung Lee's almost like she's the princess of this story. There's a sequence at the beginning of the film where she comes home from a mental a facility, and she has to go into her room. Her room is almost decorated like a teenage girl's room would be. Like there's a lot of pink in there. You would see this girls who like Disney movies, and so Purple makes sense that way. But also Purple also ties into the flower, the orchid, which is featured several times in this film, and that's important when you get to the end of the film, and I'll get to that later. But I think just the way color is used in this film is pretty cool. Going back to the notion of sort of fairy tales. I first thought, oh, this is like. Alice in Wonderland. I first thought this was that kind of, it's sort of a version of that kind of fairy tale, that type of story. And then I thought more about it, and I thought, no, this is actually Little Red Riding Hood. And instead of wearing red, Lee's wearing purple. But red is what Mr. Gray is all about. So there's something about that. The other thing is Mr. Gray is almost like the big bad wolf. And instead of escaping, trying to get away from him, Lee is drawn to this wolf. And make no mistake, he's got some anger going on. There's some anger issues and things going on. When she first goes into the office, the place is in shambles. So what happened? What went there? Like, you get the impression that an animal ran through there and just destroyed the whole place. And I think because you get the way James Spader plays it is there's a real sense of like anger beneath the surface, and so it's not you're not surprised when you see what Lee sees when she comes into the office. So the other thing about this movie is I have to single out I have to take a second to single out the amazing opening sequence of this film. So at once, it's a one take sequence where Maggie Gyllenhaal is performing office tasks with wearing a sort of arm extension thing. I don't know the proper name for it. Someone can help me in the comments. But and she's performing all these office tasks, and it's at once extremely intriguing. You're like, whoa, what the heck is going on? What is she doing? Why is she doing that? And then it's also very sensual and very sexy. And not just because whatever Maggie's doing. Maggie Gyllenhaal's moving in a way that it's like she's in complete control of the situation, in a way that someone who's new to that activity, doing it the way she was doing it, would probably not be smooth with the movements. But also, the cinematography is amazing in that sequence. The way she's captured, it's a lovely dance. She's moving, and the camera is doing some stuff with her. And the way it's executed, it's one reason why film is awesome. When you get shots like that, uninterrupted, single take situations where multiple things are happening and it's being captured with such care and such love, and it's beautiful. It's like that could just be its own short film. Just that, watch that alone. Just watch the first 5 minutes or whatever it is of the film, and that gives you an idea of the level of care that went into this picture. It's a beautiful sequence that pulls you in, and you immediately want to know what the heck is going on and why is she performing acts like that without using her hands. She's doing all these different things with her mouth and picking up pens and things. It's like, what is going on? What is this? But like I said, it's there's something about it it's kind of spicy a little bit, so just beware. That's the kind of stuff. This is what the warning is about. At the beginning of this video, I warned you guys. This kind of stuff you need to be prepared for this. If you haven't seen the movie already, just be aware uh, that it's kind of hot. So just watch yourself. And you want to know more. You want to know what's going on. So there's that. The other thing is I want to highlight. There is there's a spanking sequence in the film where and that you figure, what the heck? It's just somebody spanking somebody. What the heck? You've seen that a bajillion times. It's nothing new. It's not anything exciting. Spanking is just spanking. Whatever. What? But the way this film does it, all I can tell you that it's not for the faint-hearted. You better get ready because it's probably, I think it's probably the centerpiece of the film. I think it's probably what everything, because that's such a pivotal moment in the movie. It's where Lee is awakened to something, and the way Maggie Gyllenhaal plays it, from that whole sequence, from beginning to end, it's there's a mini story being told in that sequence. She goes from someone who's this awkward, buttoned up individual who is exposed to something and she's not quite sure whether or not she likes it, but she knows she doesn't not like it fully. Like there's a question mark about like, is this cool? What is this? And what is happening within me? Like something is happening within her when she's like, oh, this might be kind of nice. I don't know yet. And then by the end of the scene, it's you're hot, you're flustered, like whoa. As the viewer, you're going, whoa, man. So well acted, well played by both of them. And while we're on that and Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance, Maggie Gyllenhaal is a revelation in this movie. I've seen her in several things, but I've never seen her in anything like this. And I think the more I think about it, I'm like, I understand why James Spader gets top billing. He's been around longer. He's been more established. But Maggie Gyllenhaal owns this movie. This is her movie. And in my head canon, she gets top billing for this movie. She destroys this movie. Like she just, like, her performance really is it's pretty good. It's very good. And the last thing I want to mention about this film that I think, just because it hit me so much when I'd seen it. So the third act of the film, probably the last half of the third act, was probably what was the most problematic for me in my viewings, both viewings. But then I recognized, so if you don't know, the story sort of deals with elements, behaviors, and things that are prevalent in the BDSM community. And if you don't know about the BDSM community, and you have problems with this movie, that's probably where there's a disconnect there. So for me, I have friends who are in the community. I know people who understand the sort of the behaviors and how things work and dynamics within the BDSM community. And my ignorance about sort of the nuances, I can see how that played into my issues. When I understood that, sort of the difference between what a submissive is and a dominant, and how those two interact, and how the roles switch sometimes, and all of that. Once I understood more about that, it's less of a problem. So just know that if you have problems with BDSM and the nature of those dynamics, you may have issues with this film. But for me, once that was an issue for me, once I got around it, that helped me. I understood it. So there's like, okay, I understand that. The other thing that helped was looking at it as a fairy tale. That is the, and it's kind of cool looking at it from that perspective, understanding what BDSM is and sort of the version, the different ways in which it's, how a relationship like that sort of lives, and the fairy tale element within that. That's cool. And in the third act of the film, all of those themes sort of come to a head. All of that. And you may find yourself questioning Lee's actions. But I think once you get to the end, once you get to a certain point, it's really beautiful because there's a sequence. It's a bathing sequence. And this is one of the things that I sort of take that touches on sort of the aftercare aspects of what happens and in BDSM dynamics. But this is something I learned later. If you think about, if you separate aftercare and all that type of stuff and look at it as a scene, this is another one of those beautiful sequences in the film where I mentioned the orchid earlier. So Edward Gray takes care of orchids. It's the one thing you see in the film where he's attentive and he's really caring for the orchids. And at the end, you see him caring for Lee like he cared for his orchids, and it's a beautiful scene. And she's naked, and he's washing her hair, and he's doing all. It's the most. It looks like the most loving thing, and it's not pornographic at all. There's nothing about it that feels dirty or raunchy. It's the most elevated situation, and it's like this is the essence of artistic expression of a sequence like that. It's probably next to the opening scene of the film. It's probably my favorite sequence in the film, just because of the artistry on display, the way it's shot, the way it's lit, the set. And just the music, it's just the most beautiful thing. So just know that. Know that. At the end of the day, Secretary is one of those films that is not going to be for everybody. But if you can get past the things that you may have issues with, or the things that might stop you from enjoying the story that's being told, then I think you can appreciate this film, and I would recommend it. I think, again, it's not the sort of thing I watch often, but again, I revisited it, and I may revisit it again just to see some. There's genuine beauty on display in this film, and yeah. Just be ready for it if you haven't seen it. So I think that's gonna do it for this review. Thank you for spending time watching this video, and hopefully something in this discussion made some sense. I'm still a little bit flustered when I think about the movie. I'm flustered. So if you've gotten anything out of here that makes any sense at all, I'm glad you did. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another review on something pretty soon. I'm out of here. See ya.